Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Al Needham from WESX in Salem, where I serve as the news director, and a good friend of George Nowak, who we are honoring here today with this beautiful dedication ceremony. It's that kind of a day that a man would be out hunting on the opening day of the hunting season, so he would be happy with a day like this, and we're happy that he would be happy, and I am delighted that everybody is here today to pay tribute to this man and to the dedication of this little park here. If you look on the back page of your program, I won't go up and down the list, but there's an awful lot of people, and for the first time today, I see no mention of the school department on there or the striking workers, and that's pretty good. So there's some dedicated people concerned with the municipal offices mentioned on the back of your program, and I know that my colleague, the chairperson of today's event, Lenny O'Leary, is very, very grateful of these people's donations to make this program go today. We all have great George Nowak stories. So many of us have talked, and I hope that when you leave here today, that you will keep this upbeat type of conversation going, because this was his symbol. This was his trademark. I was reading the Sunday Globe this past weekend, and they made such a great deal out of the USS Salem being anchored at the Four Rivers Shipyard in Quincy, and if George was on the council, he would have been knocking on doors and saying, Salem, not Quincy. And nobody remembers that better than the city council, and he could always give out the good-natured ribbing, which he was known for. Riley Plaza could go in any direction as far as George went, and he loved to confide in his reliable sources, and we'll leave that where it is. We had a lot of fun over the years with this man, and hopefully the memories will all stay on the upbeat side here today. We ask you to turn to the color guard and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. Start with the invocation delivered by the Reverend Frederick Guthrie, Immaculate Conception Church.
We bow our heads in prayer. Ever-loving Father, we gather here this afternoon to honor a son, a husband, a father or a grandfather, a neighbor or friend, a public servant in a variety of different ways. And as we honor the memory of George Nowak, may we take a quality from his life, epitomized by the word service, and put it into our own lives. Yes, Lord, bless us as we honor this man and be a source of strength and support for his family and for his friends, and especially for his people in Ward 1. And this is our prayer in our Father's name. Amen.
Ward 6 City Councilor Sally Hayes is the chairperson of the Memorial Committee, and unfortunately Sally is battling some kind of a flu, and hopefully she'll be back at her seat on the council, and hopefully she will be back with us before long. But she certainly would have loved to have been here to pay tribute to a fellow who she battled with from time to time on the council, but had a great deal of respect for. And that basically is the bottom line, why we are here. We have so much of a respect for George and today and his family, and he always talked about his people, and as you people have filled this little park here today, we're delighted we are his people. And nobody knows that more than my colleague, Councilor Lenny O'Leary, who will now introduce a lot of the people that are here today to make this great day possible. Lenny O'Leary.
Thank you, Al. Renee, a lot of people here. No crying. First of all, what I'd like to do is introduce the committee, because Sally Hayes is not here as the chairperson. Myself, Lenny O'Leary, Vincent Fafaro, to my right, George A. Ahmed, Ward 1 Councilor, and William Lester, the City Planner. I would also like to thank the Salem Police Department, the Danvers Police Department, and the Salem Veterans of War for their color guard here, and people from the City of Danvers. At this time, the committee, myself and the people that stand behind me here, went out and took on a task, and we really got a lot of help. We got a lot of help from a lot of people, and I do have to mention them today. First of all, we had donations from New England Power Company, which is headed by Malia Griffin, but we also have Dave Beatty here, who is a good friend of George's, and Bob Pressure. And I want to thank you very much for your donation towards the plaque. A man that did a lot of work here, who picked out the stone. I was with him that day with the city engineer, who was Charlie Quigley. We had it cut to the exact measurements, and that's Dan Mackey and Mackey Construction. I want to thank them for bringing the stone over and setting it up over here and doing a lot of work. He was a big help, and also he got the plaque ready for us. And I'd like to have a big hand for Dan Mackey. He really started us out. Also on the list is Dave Garnett, who had donated the canopy that stands here today, which is a big help in this windy day. I would like to thank the City of Salem employees, the city clerk's office, who made up the pamphlet and helped us out, the cemetery department, the park department, the planning department, and the public works department, and also the recreation department. Larry was a great help in doing these things for us. I would like to say and a big thank you to the committee, because the committee was great. They loved the stone. They helped pick out the words on the plaque, and I'd like to give a nice hand to them. They did a great job. Now, at this time, I would like to introduce the present city councilors. And if I miss anybody, please let me know. Judge McCabe, Judge Mark Blair, Kevin Harvey, William Russell Burns, Jane Sturgewell, and our President Stan Yusevich for taking the time out to come here today. I also, at this time, would be very thankful for Sam Zoll, the former mayor, and present Judge Sam Zoll. Tony Salvo is here today. I'd like to introduce the former city clerk, Josephine Fusco's here. Big help to us. And our own city clerk now, Debbie Birkinshaw. We do have Representative Tartleson here, who took the time out to come here, and we really appreciate it. And standing behind him is State Senator, Fred Berry. Fred, this way they notice you more, you know. But I do have former councilors that I would like to introduce at this time, and a very good friend of George and myself, Rich Schlennick, Francis Grace, Robert Field, Jack Nutting, and our veterans agent and former councilor, and I thank him very much for the VFW after this ceremony, Jean Guy Martineau. And strange as it may be, we have one councilor from Peabody. One councilor from Peabody here, who was a good friend of George, and that's William Toomey. Thanks, Bill. And on the council's list, too, is former Vincent J. Fafaro, the former Ward 3 councilor, and City Councilor George Ahmed. At this time, I would like to introduce the Nowak family, which I don't know if everybody knows them, but there's quite a few of us that do. And for those who don't, we have George's mother here, Mary Nowak. See you down front. Of course, a special friend, Renee Nowak, George's wife. We have the daughter and his son-in-law, Kim and Steve Fiacco Pearly. How was that, Renee, all right? Cindy Nowak, another daughter. And we have his two sons here, which is Eric Nowak and Mark Nowak. We do have George's sister here, Geraldine Cosgrove. And we do have his brother and former selectman from Topsfield, Paul and Joey Nowak. And I'd just like to say a few words, and Renee told me to be brief or I should start crying. So I would like to thank everyone for coming to George. George was a tremendous loss to his family, the city of Salem, the city council, and especially to me as a friend. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a hat here given to me by a friend of mine on the Danvers Police Department. Actually, he gave it to my son. And a year ago, when we suffered the loss of our good friend, my boy was concerned and wanted identification, and I said, that's the same fella who used to come over here at Christmas time and bring presents to you kids. And I'm talking about a span of 10 years with my guy who was 10 years old. And I know that you all have a personal story about this man's unselfishness and how he carried on, especially during the holiday season. Very, very low profile. Didn't want anything said. He breezed in and breezed out, and that will never, ever be forgotten. I will never forget some of the great stories that we've had on the upbeat side. George was big on hats. He always had a collection of hats. He would give me a Danvers police hat. He would give me a Merchant Marine hat from Alaska, Honolulu, Hawaii, anywhere. It didn't matter. And I said, well, what about the Salem Police Department? And he said, well, he says, I'm kind of infringing over there. He says, but the crack team will take care of you. And they did. I have a lot of respect for the great rapport that this man has established, and you can tell the different people that are here today, the professionals. We've missed a lot of great people in the professional world in the city of Salem alone. You talk about the mayors that we have lost. We talk about Mike O'Keefe, who was a pioneer in the labor industry, in the leather trade, and we talk about so many other great people that have gone. Jim Shea, the editor of the Salem News, Mayor Collins, different people that we can just remember in the years that have gone by. George was a small part of the loss that we have suffered here today, but to all of the people that are here, a giant of a man. And I can't think of anybody over the past year that brings back so many memories. We chatted, Vinny Favaro and George and I chatted about politics a lot of times. We counted the spaces that would be available at Riley Plaza if and when the traffic pattern had changed. We talk about all the time it takes for the lights to change today in the 1990s. And George would have been out there with a time clock saying, see, you should have listened to me. But we can do this in a humorous vein. And that's why I want you people to leave this place here today and think about the upbeat side of life and what this man has done to make us a better person for the 1990s, and we can carry through. The Nowak family is represented here today by the members that you heard Lenny talk about, and I do believe, according to my notebook to Leonard O'Leary, Eric has something to say. Eric Nowak will come to the microphone and speak on behalf of his voting family.
Thank you very much for coming, everybody. sorry, excuse me, but on behalf of my mother and the whole Nowak family, we're really grateful and honored that people took the time out to really give such a dedication to my father. I know he would have loved it. I know all of your friends and family know my father knew he would have loved it also. Thank you very much for all coming here, and thank you.
Probably the closest person in George's lineup in municipal government had to be his cleanup batter, and that would be the man who looked after George, and that would be the man who asked George to look after him. And I know that nobody speaks more highly of George and the Nowak family and gave him so much credit for his long tenure on Beacon Hill and the service that he has given us in his representative district. Michael Wayne, a true friend of the Nowaks, and Mike is here to talk today.
Thank you, Al. My fellow citizens, Mary Nowak, Renee, members of the Nowak family, members of city government, all the dignitaries here, but particularly the people of Salem and the citizens of Ward 1. I could relate numerous stories about my good friend, Judge Nowak. To know Judge Nowak was to love him. You had to love the man. There's so many reasons that I can't go into here because the weather here today isn't fitting for you to be outside and freeze. But let me tell you about Judge Nowak and my relationship. At times I valued Judge Nowak more as a first baseman than a city council because I always wanted to beat the hell out of Peabody. And we always did. Judge Nowak was the epitome of what a good ward councilor is all about. Ward 1 was foremost in his mind. But above and beyond his duties as a city council, his family came first. Just a great, great family man. Judge Nowak and I perhaps were in conversation even long after I left city government. Perhaps every 2 to 3 nights we were on the phone together. It might have been a problem in Salem. It was always, Mike, can you give South Essex a tickle? And the effort we made to keep South Essex as honest as we could in regard to the problems that Salem people have endured. I look across the street and I think of this occasion today. At one time, I perhaps could throw a baseball down on the field we dedicated to my late colleague and city councilor, Mike O'Keefe. A couple 100 yards up the street, his dedication of a small park to a man who was the greatest parliamentarian in the history of city government, in my opinion. And that was Richie Swinnick's father, Louis Swinnick. And then amongst us today stands a godfather to the Nowak family, so to speak, Bob Preshon. And above all, Dave Beatty. Those two people, at the urgence and insistence of Judge Nowak, contributed more to the city of Salem in regard to getting your streets cleaned. We had thousands of cars washed, thousands of homes done over, thanks to the goodness of those two people. That was Judge Nowak fighting for his people. I'm a guy, and I don't say this because people are here, because it's kind of difficult to say. I visit my good friend on the average of once a week. I was there today. I was there a year ago with my wife, Elena, and very ironically, Renee and the family didn't know the stone was being put in. And how I called the family at that point in time and said how beautiful it was. He loved life. He loved people. But the epitome of what Judge really stood out for is what Al Needham said. He was a good husband, he was a great father, and a wonderful grandfather. I knew Mary Nowak long before I knew her son George, and Paul, and other members of the Nowak family. But our hearts and our hands and our minds touched together for the same common good of what Salem was all about, for what was best for its people. And as I love Salem, so did George. Every city councilor standing here today, it's a personal tribute to each and every elected official and people that are gone by the scenes but contributed so much. Two people I served with here, Bob Field, Richie Swinyak. Judge Nowak was the last sitting city councilor that I sat with in the Salem City Council. And so without further words, I thank the committee for the privilege and pleasure of being able to say a few things. On behalf of the Ruane family, our lifelong friendship will go a lot further. I love you people. I thank the committee for the invitation of considering me. To each and every one of you, if I could throw just an Irish blessing upon you and upon what George was all about, I would raise a toast to George and I would say, may the roads rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and the rains fall soft upon your fields. Until we meet again, George, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. Thank you.
Before we come to the top part of the program today, the unveiling of this beautiful monument dedicated to the memory of such a beautiful guy, I can never forget every time I drive through downtown Salem during the 90s with the great changes, the brand new municipal police station, one of the best anywhere at number 95 Margin Street, and just a short distance away, the brand new traffic configuration, which we are now all coping with and getting along with. Back in the early days of the bidding process for the police station and the redesigning of Riley Plaza, it got hot and heavy from time to time in the second floor chambers of City Hall in Salem. And one of my sources used to say to me, it's a public hearing, get them out. Are you sure it's a public hearing? Well, yeah, I think it is. We want a good crowd there. The crowd would show, the council president would call me the next day, no, it wasn't a public hearing. I said, uh-oh, we must have messed up somehow. But we chuckled about that, and he had a great ability to get people out. Mentioning Bob Pression and Dave Beatty just moments ago, two key figures in the future of this city with the tremendous asset that New England Power has been, and we know the entire story there. But George used to call me from time to time and say, Al, put a plug in for my people. They're going to have their sheets done over. They're going to have their laundry reprocessed because of the soot and the flying embers and whatever that have caused them the problems. And I said, well, what caused that? And he said, well, I don't know. He said, it came from the general area. And 2 days later, he called up and he said, hey, give my friend Dave Beatty a plug. I said, well, why plug Dave Beatty? He said, well, he's doing a great job for New England Power. I said, George, I said, he said, we got to cover all the bases. That's the way he was. And let's keep it upbeat from here on in. And I would like to call the council president, Stanley Yusevich, to the podium to make a very special presentation.
Thank you, Al. Nay, if you could come up. Judge Nowak, it's special to me in that the first year I was on the city council, I had the great honor to sit next to him. And Al's right in terms of the thousands, literally thousands of stories about Judge Nowak, and I hope you all get a chance to share them. But there's, on occasions like this, opportunities to talk about what Judge was like. And there are two things that come to mind to me. He was a man that held to his convictions, but a man that never held a grudge. On behalf of a grateful city councilor, Renee.
On the rest of the program, you will see the closing. You will see a bagpipe tribute mentioned with Ian Massey. And on behalf of the members of Wick City Post 1524, you are all invited back to 95 Derby Street to a buffet, and they have piles and piles of food there, and they want it all taken care of. And I know that one of the members of the color guard, and I won't mention who it is, will be in line, so you'll have to battle with him. We're having fun here today, And it wasn't fun early this morning, and I talk about way before dawn when I had my first conversation with Mayor Neil J. Harrington. And it's my guess that the school issue will not come up in his address now to you people on behalf of his former colleague on the council, Mayor Neil Harrington.
Thank you, Al, and neither will Riley Plaza come up in my remarks today. Reverend clergy, Congressman Torkelson, Senator Berry, Representative Ruane, my colleagues in city government, most importantly the Nowak family and the citizens of Ward 1. As I was trying to deal with everything we're doing in the city today, I wanted to make sure I set enough time aside to give proper reflection to what I might say here today that could add something to the proceedings. And I'm not sure if I'm worthy of that. Other than by virtue of my office, there are people here, and you all recognize them, both elected officials and neighbors of George and family, friends, who could say a lot more eloquent things about George Nowak than I could. But I am very pleased and proud to be here and to add what I can to today's ceremony. I was standing on Derby Wharf when they cut the ribbon to reopen the wharf after the recent renovations. And I was talking to I think it might have been Lenny O'Leary or one of the councilors, maybe Jane Sturgewalt, and I heard this voice behind me. And I said to myself, sounds like George. And I turned around, it was Paul. And I don't know whether George was trying to say something to me or what it was, but I felt he was there because the neighbors were there, it was a community day, and to me, I guess, although he was certainly, obviously not there in body, I felt he was there in spirit, and I felt he is here in spirit as well today. I think it's a tribute to George that so many people from the ward are here today. So many of his neighbors, his friends, the people who've laughed and cried with him, seen his kids grow up, and been sort of his other family down here at the Willows. Those of us who are privileged to represent the Willows on a citywide basis know how much it meant to George to represent the Willows on a neighborhood basis and as a friend. And I would like to pay special tribute and thank all of the neighbors and all the friends of George who are here today. Thank you very much. And last but not least, I think something should be said about longevity and the fact that George served for over 2 decades on the city council in a city that has seen a number of changes, has seen people come and go, has seen people go on to bigger and better things. Sam Zoll, Mike Ruane, people who are too countless to mention, all of whom at one point or another served with George or worked with him closely, and yet George endured through it all. I was privileged to serve with him for a brief period of time, and longevity in public service is not an evil thing. People talk about term limits, throw the bums out, bring in new people. The mayor of Newton, before he passed away, the late Teddy Mann, was being challenged by someone because he had been mayor for more than 20 years, and people said, we should change. We should make a change. And he got up on the podium a couple of weeks before he passed away and said, change what? And he proceeded to list all of the good things that he had felt that he had done for the city of Newton. And of course, obviously, he received resounding applause. People of Ward 1 didn't want to change. They knew what they had in George. And we all knew what we had in George, and we missed that very much. Longevity in public service is something to be commended. It's something to be admired, particularly for those who take that time and make a qualitative, positive improvement in their city and for the people they represent for as long as they wish to do it and as long as the people have confidence in them. That's George's legacy. He and his family ought to be very, very proud of that. I know, as someone who served with him, that I'm proud of it, and the city owes him a debt of gratitude that in many ways will never be repaid. Thank you again for inviting me to share this day with you, and God bless George and the Nowak family. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the rest of the program speaks for itself. It's a moment for the family. This is their day on behalf of their man, and we're proud to be part of this gathering. Would the members of the Nowak family please come forward and unveil this great plaque, a masterpiece to a great, great person.
So we now pray. Father, as these grace-filled moments come to their conclusion, may we be impressed by the eternal symbolism of this stone. And as we honor a man today and hold the memory of George Nowak dear, may we continue, every time we pass this green spot, may it bring back the memory of one who served. And may we also serve in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
He said so often, they're my people. His people are invited to join us all down at 95 Derby Street at the VFW post 1524 for a buffet